All right, friends. So today we're going to talk about um, how to choose the right um, lazy summer position for you. But before we're going to do that, I think we should take a step back and really just think about like choosing the right like yield position for you in DeFi more generally. So if you go to DeFi today, it's great. I mean, the DeFi TVL is approaching all time high, and it's looking very likely that we're going to go well beyond that in the coming months and uh, hopefully years as well. Now, how do let's say you have assets, you have stable coins or you have ETH, to, really high quality assets, and you want to earn yield on them. Today there's a lot of options within within the DeFi ecosystem. And I'm just going to highlight a few here. So Aave, you can go to Aave and you can deposit in their markets. So you can um, get SUSDE. You can go to Maple and deposit into Syrup. Um, and if you're new to DeFi, you might be thinking like, "What am I talking about?" But these are all different underlying protocols. And two, I actually want to highlight right away that if you sort of do your research or diligence or something, you'll find pretty quickly is both Morpho and Euler. So these are both bar lend protocols that have sort of isolated markets that allow users to deposit into various different vaults that all have sort of different risk profiles and stuff like that. And they're both very popular. Both of them are uh, some of the top protocols. Morpho for sure, basically. But what you'll see right away when you go to say earn on, let's say USDC, uh, in something like Morpho, is there are a bunch of options. You know, here 4 pages of options, which all of them are interesting and useful in their own way, but a lot of options. Um, Same thing when you go to Euler. Let's say you wanted to uh, choose a position on Euler, same thing. For let's say USDC, you know, tons of options. So that's really the power of the lazy summer protocol is under the hood, really bringing these options into um, just giving you the highest quality yields automatically. So same for USDC, but you'll see you still have to make a decision here. Um, and when it comes to lazy summer or the lazy summer protocol, you're still going to have to make a less decision because underlying all of these different vaults, you're getting exposure to a bunch of different yield sources and protocols, Morpho, Aave, Euler, just to name a few, which we'll dig into in a second. But I really just want to explain some of the trade offs when you're choosing um, or trying to understand what the right position is for you. So, and there are a few different things that we can touch on to try and understand that. So, some advice or something that somebody told me a while ago, which I thought was really great, was would you recommend X, Y, or Z asset to your someone in your family, like my mom or sister or something? And I think that's a really great way to think about these positions as well, but more so maybe in the DeFi context. So when you're choosing a position, there are a couple really high level decisions that you have to make right away. So first is of course the network or chain that you want to be on. And second is the sort of token or asset that you want to deposit. So we'll take those as for granted, let's say, or we'll assume that you know what token you have, which you probably do, and we'll just briefly touch on the networks here and how to think about those. So when it comes to tokens, let's use actually let's. yeah, let's use USDC. Um, yeah, and so you know what token you have. That's all good. Um, then when it comes to choosing a network, I think choosing a network is really it comes down to two things. The first is the breadth and depth of yield sources that you'll have access to. Generally speaking, Mainnet has the deepest, most liquid yield sources. So if liquidity really matters to you, and also like the just the general breadth of options really matter to you, Mainnet is a choice for you. Then, generally speaking, when it comes to cost, when it comes to speed, when it comes to, um, sometimes rewards as well, especially as base is sort of growing rapidly, that's sort of the consideration: cost, speed, and somewhat trust, given that base is tethered to Coinbase. That is a consideration that you'll have to make when thinking about what network you'll want to deposit on. And then same things apply for Sonic and Arbitrum. And all of these networks are ones that the team, or the protocol rather, the DAO, has decided to enable within Lazy Summer, basically because these are where the highest quality yield sources are. So then you'll have to select which one you're interested in. So I think most people will probably want to be within mainnet or base. So let's select those. And all of a sudden you're presented with three options. And three options instead of, 10, 20, 30 options that you'll have to choose from in something like Morpho or Euler, which are fantastic protocols, or even deciding between those and Aave and SUSDE. Like, these are all incredible yield sources, and incredible teams behind them that are not only giving you access to the fundamental yield source, but also the different risk curators in some of these protocols, within some of these protocols that are sort of devising the strategy, so to speak. But the major difference here with Lazy Summer is that you now are just presented with three choices, as opposed to many, 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 many choices. And so the question is how do you make a decision between these three? Like, how do you choose the right vault for you? So we already talked about the asset. That's easy. We already talked about the network. That's sort of easy as well. So now when it comes to Lazy Summer, the only attribute that you really want to think about is maybe the risk. So I think it's fairly straightforward to say, hey, like, you care about the rewards. Like, it just so happens that all of these are around 10% right now. But the real core question is, how do you make the trade off between understanding, hey, do I want USDC higher risk or USDC lower risk? Is really comes down to the type of yield sources that are within or capable of being within these vaults. So when it comes to USDC higher risk, the vault exposure or the type of strategies that are underlying, or the type of yield sources that are underlying the vault are ones that are generally more aggressive, generally taking on more longer tail collateral in the case of lending, and generally going outside the bounds of lending itself. So a yield source might be farming, or it might be something else that can be proposed and then put into this vault. So one way I like to really think about it is, for example, the higher risk strategies give more optionality, and as such give sort of a little bit more volatility. Let's say they could go higher for a little while or a long while. They could go a little bit lower for a little bit for a while. And in some cases, because the mechanism goes beyond lending, the assets might be or your assets might be a little bit less liquid at times, but you're giving up that liquidity or giving up that option to withdraw anytime sometimes for higher upside or the potential for higher upside. So yeah, for me, going back to this idea of like who would you I don't want to use the word recommend, but who would you uh be willing to share this with, let's say, is for me, I always think about, the lazy summer higher risk strategies as people who want to be more adventurous with their capital. Now, that doesn't mean a higher tolerance for loss or capital loss, because within lazy summer, within Summer.fi, it's a lot of diligence around only the highest quality. So it's less so about that and more so about being adventurous in terms of where the yield is coming from, how the yield is being derived, and giving the optionality for higher upside. Now, with when it comes to lower risk, which is really, I think, the only decision that you have to make when it comes to choosing the right vault for you in lazy summer, is really around this trade-off around higher risk or lower risk, generally speaking, because as we've discussed, a lot of users already kind of know the asset that they want to use. They already kind of know the chain that they're comfortable with, or if not, we've sort of dived into already, what are the sort of chain trade-offs that you need to make. Now, when it comes to lower risk, generally speaking, these are really tried and true, steadfast, the not vanilla, but the blue chip, I would say, um, yield sources within DeFi. Really high quality lending within Morpho, really high quality lending within um, Euler. Syrup USDC is here, for example. Spark USDC is here. These are just the highest quality protocols, highest quality yield sources. They're deeply, deeply, deeply liquid. And it's really the best of the more conservative yields in DeFi. It's really the best of the best, the creme de la creme, so to speak, always optimized. So going back to this notion of who should think about, or who would I share a lower risk lazy summer vault with, is people who just want the best. They just want the best of the best. They don't want to venture out. They want the tried and true. And when it comes to lazy summer, that means that you're getting the tried and true of all all of the best protocols. Not just Morpho, not just Euler, not just Sky, or not just Spark. You really get um, optimized earning from all of them, which is really amazing. So going back to the original question, is how to choose the right vault for you. It's a really bit of a misnomer. You can't really go wrong in lazy summer, because you just have a very very simple yet important decision to make around, hey, what chain do you want to be on? How much risk do you want to take? Or really frame differently, how aggressive do you want to be? How adventurous do you want to be in the yield sources that you're taking on? So hopefully that was really helpful, and yeah, definitely deposit into the lazy summer protocol. It's the best way to get the best yields in DeFi without doing any extra work.